Hello and welcome to your bonus episode of predictocast for the month of July. We are wrapping up Larry Cohen month here on Patreon by doing something a little different. We could have covered one of the random assortment of Larry Cohen movies that are out there, but we thought we might want to do something a little special and talk about a film that was written by Larry Cohen but directed by Joel Schumacher, who recently passed away and actually was responsible for it makes him sound like a bad guy, for the first film that we ever covered here on Predictocast. That's why this month we are talking about Phone Booth. I'm Josh, and with me as always is Skinner. Hey, Skinner.
Hey, everybody. Do not take off your headphones. You're going to listen the entire time, or else. I need you guys to not move. I know the names of all your spouses and your mistresses and manstresses. I know them all.
That's right. This podcast is happening in real time,
In
just
the
like the movie.
time. There's no more real a time than a Patreon exclusive podcast.
Okay, so we have to get this out of the way first. You had never seen this before watching it for the show, right?
I haven't seen anything. That's the fun of this show. That's why I'm the co-host of the show, because I haven't seen anything. I literally I had some family tragedy around 99, 2000. I moved to America, land of the free, all the opportunity, poor as fuck. And because in America you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, I was poor as fuck for about 12 years. So
wow, you did not pull hard enough on those bootstraps, I guess.
I have very short arms. It's very hard to get down there. I'm not very flexible. There's a lot of problems, a lot of issues. A problem with me and out of the country. And so anything that's basically between, like, when I was in high school and college, we would, you'd run out to the Canadian off-brand of Blockbuster and then eventually Blockbuster, and just rent shitty movies on the weekend with your buddies. Nothing else to do, right?
Yeah, of course.
I often, for a long period of time, I did not have a DVD player or a VHS player in the early 2000s. And then when I did, I didn't have the money or time to watch anything. And then just kind of got out of the entire habit of it. So I just fucking didn't watch anything. Like, if you guys talk about romantic comedies, like comedy, like anything like that really hit in the early 2000s, that first decade, I don't have a fucking clue. I have no nostalgia for it. I have no base. Like, any band from that time, I didn't listen to the radio, I didn't buy any CDs. And then when Napster finally and everything else came along, I just downloaded stuff from the 90s. That whole, like, new metal, I haven't heard a fucking lick of it.
Oh,
Not
man, we should do a new
lick.
metal. We should do a new metal podcast.
You'd be introducing all of it to me. The only time I saw new metal when I watched archival footage of WWE from the 2002 era.
Okay, that's about right.
Nothing. Like, all the movies that had soundtracks. You talk about, like, on, like, We Hate Movies, like, oh, all this new metal soundtrack shit. I didn't see any of that or hear any of it. It is completely a black hole to me, and nothing anyone has ever said has ever made me think I need to go back and fill that hole.
Well, what did you, so that being said, what did you think of this for the first time through?
I thought, okay, a couple things. I also, I thought that this movie is fucking sealed in amber the first time they start talking about phones. Because
yeah, it pretty much solidifies the moment in time this movie was made.
It's funny because phones didn't change for decades, and then cell phones came along, and we thought, this seems to be changing a bit, but it won't happen that fast because it's just phones. And then fucking, like, the second the smartphone came along, and, like, everything fucking changed entirely about society and ruined movies. Two, I didn't watch a lot of TV back then, so I had a very poor idea. I knew Katie Holmes was on a show on some American channel.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I have no memory of when it was. Dawson's Creek, right?
Yeah, it was Dawson's Creek, of course. Come on.
Yeah. Really no idea. I'm not fucking kidding you. I also have not watched The Matrix or Titanic.
Again, those will be Patreon episodes.
I will not be on those episodes. You guys cannot pay me enough.
You have to do at least The Matrix. I wouldn't make you watch Titanic, but The Matrix is a good movie.
Sure it is. And this has
it has some Matrixy stuff in it. I will say the opening feels very Matrixy.
But like I didn't have a clue. Like I didn't really have a full grasp of what Katie Holmes' age here, and she's famously young looking. She's the same age as me.
Oh, okay.
But she has aged much better. But at this point, when Colin Farrell's character Stu calls her, he's calling a baby. And I fucking screamed at the.
Oh, okay. Well, let before we get into specifics, let's kind of set up what this movie is. Which...
No, here's what I want to know before we even start.
Oh, okay, go.
And I think this is what everyone who knows phone booth, all the phone booth heads, people who have held this movie in their heart for a long time and argue about it online. Are you team Kelly or team Pam?
This was the Twilight team Jacob team. What's the other guy's name?
Don't know it,
Edward.
But right in that spot, didn't watch any of it. I haven't watched any of those movies, and I never will.
This is that argument of the day. I guess his wife. I guess Kelly.
I get it really says a lot that at the end of this movie, Kelly forgives him.
Yeah, I mean,
at first making her not a character.
Well, he didn't have sex with Pamela.
He thought about it.
He thought about it, but like again,
I think it's important to point out that I'm Team Kelly because I talked about my whole of movies from 2000 to 2012 or so. Right, the last movie I watched in 2000 before I started watching movies, Pitch Black.
Okay,
starring Radha Mitchell.
Okay.
She is the star of that movie, not that other guy. So I'm Team Kelly.
What's the other guy's name? Ben Gasoline, something like that?
Ben, something like that. I don't know. He must have done some shit. See his names. I have also never watched a second of any of the movies related to, spun off of, or mainline of the Fast and Furious movies.
I think I'm with you there. I've seen the first two, but that's it. Maybe we could go
good.
through those together.
No, every other podcast already has.
That is true. We want to avoid those. All right,
let's watch the Star Wars prequels and talk about them. That'll get the downloads.
I mean, it probably would, honestly. Okay, so if you don't know what Phone Booth is, it's a 2002 film directed by Joel Schumacher, written by Larry Cohen, about a man who makes a call from a phone booth, receives a call from a phone booth from a man who tells him that he's got him in his sights of a high-powered assault rifle, and if the guy hangs up the phone or doesn't do exactly what the caller says, he will kill him and potentially others around him in the area. It's a tight little thriller. 81 minutes. We do not make movies like this anymore. For whatever reason, we have gotten away from the tight 81-minute thriller. I mean, it's amazing how much they cram into 81 minutes.
It is amazing how much they do it. They cram into it. It in fact, if it was any longer, be insufferable.
Yes, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It does exactly what it needs to do, and it gets out of there.
It sets up. I'm not gonna say this is a perfect film anyway.
It's not perfect, but I hadn't watched it in a long time. Probably, I would say since it came out, roughly around that time. I probably saw it in 2003, 4-ish, and I think it still kind of holds up. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good, like considering how flimsy it is, and you're really putting a lot of effort onto Colin Farrell talking in an American accent, which is stupid.
Well, his accent's a little strained. He gets better, I think, as time goes on. Not necessarily in the movie, but in his career.
But at this point, like,
but he is good in this movie.
He's good.
He does some work.
He does some work. He sweats a lot, which is what you want. But it is so reliant on him and so reliant on ADR Kiefer Sutherland, who is if you're listening with I'm sure in a theater it works a little better. If you're listening with headphones, he's so fucking crystal clear.
No, it doesn't. I watched it on the television with my roommates last night, and it's a little jarring. Like I understand why they didn't put a like sort of phone filter over his voice, because I feel like maybe that would have gotten
it would have been a little too Bane
annoying to people watching. But it is a little. It feels like it's narration. It doesn't feel like it's integrated into the world.
No, because the problem is he's mic'd better than the characters we are technically with.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can't. You hear him too clear, and maybe that's intentional. But I think it's probably just like this guy's going to be talking throughout most of the movie. We cannot have him sound bad, otherwise that will get annoying.
Yeah, and like. And it's not super annoying. It does make you. All I could picture was Kiefer Sutherland sitting in a recording booth.
Well,
you know,
that's the problem, is that because you know his voice, and because he if you know who Kiefer Sutherland is, his voice is distinctive. So that when they show the guy at the end and they're like, "Well, this is the killer, and he murdered himself," and you're like, "No, it's not."
I mean, I understand you pick Kiefer Sutherland to get people to come to theaters.
Yeah, because this is around 24, and like when it was really popular, and I think that would have. But nobody knew he was in it until after the movie had come out. Like they heard his voice, but it wasn't advertised.
Yeah,
so,
but it's stupid because it's so him obviously. Like he has one of those, like because of 24 and his narration and everything, he has one of those, like in anything flatliners. Everyone loves flatliners. Everyone knows what it sounds like. I do love. There's a few things in the Wikipedia which I want to talk about a little bit real quick here up front.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. He's in the phone booth for the entire movie. The guy will go through little bits and pieces and bits, but that's kind of the movie. He's in there. He's on the phone with the guy. The guy shoots some people a couple times. It ends. He has to reveal that he's had a sort of emotional affair, sort of in his own mind, with another woman to his wife in front of the TV cameras, and then everything is okay. That's sort of the movie. That's
the whole movie, and that's all it should be. It didn't literally should have been nothing more than that. If you're going to do a tight 80, the very specific plot contrivance as this, it has to be any little bit more you added to this would make it more far-fetched. If you think about it for a second, because it's so simple, you think about it really briefly, like, oh, I can see this happening. It couldn't. But because it is such a tight, for a movie of this level, such a tight little concept, and doesn't ever leave what it does, you don't leave your believability at the door. You never walk away from it. Like, okay, they're not ever doing more with it. Like they're never like, oh, and then he's part of this bigger conspiracy, and like they go further out. Like, no, it's just literally he hates jackasses, and he's trying to make them feel like shit.
Well, I want to say that. Well, before you get to the Wikipedia stuff, I want to say that I think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this. You know, parallel thinking is a thing. People come up with the same ideas all the time. But it's
what's that about convicted criminals being killed and then becoming electricity and going into the power grid? How many movies are that?
Exactly that. What I was going to say is, though, that The Caller, as he is referenced on IMDb, feels very much like Jigsaw. I don't know if that's a series that you have a lot of familiarity with.
Not a watch. I know what it is because of podcasts. I have never watched a single second of it.
A couple years ago, I watched all of them with my roommate. They definitely devolve in quality. The first one is unintentionally a good bad movie, but because it's just very goofy, and it has some of the same like weird editing contrivances that this does. There's some weird shit going on in this movie that we'll talk about, but like this guy feels very much like Jigsaw. Like he's picking out guys that he thinks are bad. He's giving them a chance to repent and save themselves, and then when they don't, they die. And it's like, did the makers of the Saw movies see Phone Booth and go, oh, there's an idea for a weird bad guy / vigilante anti-hero kind of thing?
I could see if you
and then
had
they made 9 fucking movies out of it.
If you had pitched Saw in 1987 to Larry Cohen and say, hey, write this, I bet you he could have.
Oh, probably.
I think that it would have been a little bit more conspiracy, and it already kind of is from what I've heard, but like it would be less torture porn and more like just weird.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
This one, like you could almost say that he is somebody who is trying to, he is, even though Stu is the shepherd, the real shepherd is the collar, as he's taking this sheep who's left his flock. But except for please, I would, what did the pizza guy do?
Nothing. He said he apologizes for his murder at the end of the movie.
Exactly. He's not a German porn king. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I like that always, it still feels a little flimsy, but I think the reason is, so like we haven't mentioned it yet, but Stu is he's not an agent, sorry, he's a publicist, as he corrects people multiple times. He's a publicist who obviously is trying to get his clients into various parties and on the covers of magazines and information about them into the gossip columns and all that stuff. And this guy, because he lies, because he is sort of a douche, basically, he lands in the sights of our killer, who has up to this point killed a pedophile porn maker and a stock guy who basically sold all of his stock before he knew the bottom was going to drop out and cost a bunch of people a bunch of money. So like
he ruined, so a guy who is a pedophile pornographer, somebody who ruined countless lives financially for his own gain. And then a publicist who's a douchebag.
I think that the reason I think that that's the way that it is because we're still supposed to like Stu at the end. Like if the German porn king pedophile had been our main character and survived, I think that would be a really hard thing for audiences to go, well, I'm glad that guy lived.
Well, here's the thing. Like the idea is he has to do all this shit to prove that he's learned a lesson, and it's left kind of open-ended whether he was ever going to live or he could do enough to confess his sins, right? Like what could a German pedophile porn king, German pedophile king, like how much could he confess and still, like, it wouldn't change the fact that he is a pedophile.
Yeah, so the stock guy makes sense because he even mentions like, oh, he could have given that money back. He could have given that money to help the people that he wronged, and that would have been enough. But like, what could the pedophile do? Like, I mean, how is he gonna make restitution for people that he might have hurt?
It's impossible, and it sets this weird. It is like, to me, it has this weird domino effect of like pedophile, Wall Street asshole, publicist, pizza guy.
Yeah, it's going to start like going down like this guy ran a red light and well, it's time to die.
I mean, like you could easily have seen Phone Booth 2, except for Phone Booth went away. So like you couldn't do it.
Yeah, again, there's no way to like make this movie like apparently Larry Cohen wrote a movie that came out in I think 2004 called Cellular.
I love the idea that he has his whole phone oeuvre.
Apparently it's exactly the same movie. It's just about a person with a cell phone who has to talk to someone on a cell phone. I've never seen it, but apparently it's the same thing. Like he wrote this while he was waiting for Phone Booth to be made because apparently he'd been trying to get the idea going since the 60s. He tried to sell it to Alfred Hitchcock, and neither of them could figure out a way to make the character stay in the phone booth, which is so mind-blowing to me that they couldn't figure that out.
Here's the thing, like that's what I was going to talk about with the Wikipedia. So it mentions that he had really pitched that concept of a movie taking entirely place in a phone booth, Alfred Hitchcock, when this is a very Hitchcockian idea, right? And which a lot of Larry Cohen stuff is.
Yeah.
And then it said like the idea in the 90s came to him of the sniper, which is like, it took you like 30 fucking years for that. Like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
It says, and like this is written like I swear to God, Cohen wrote this himself in the thing. Like Cohen solved the puzzle after 30 years of trying. What a weird thing to say. And he goes, Hitchcock had died, leaving the project in Cohen's hands. And the way that is stated to me in my head is like Hitchcock in his dying breath holding Larry Cohen's hands in the hospital goes, I leave it to you.
just like Walt Disney's last words were apparently Kurt Russell, Hitchcock's last words were phone booth.
And it ends with one of the most popular and successful film directors and producers, Steven Spielberg, was convinced if Hitchcock was alive, he would have wanted to direct the movie. Spielberg also mentions regrets in not taking the script. If Spielberg said that to Larry Cohen, who wrote this Wikipedia article before he died himself, that Spielberg was being facetious and trying to make him feel better. Like, this is an okay movie. It was very profitable as a mid-sized hit because there's not much, you didn't have to pay a lot for it besides getting every early 90s star possible in this short little chunk of time, early 2000 star. But there's nothing about this like where anyone would finish watching and go like, damn it, I wish that had been me. No one would have done that. And also I want to mention a couple other things here. It says the film marked the third collaboration between Kiefer Sutherland and Forrest Whitaker. Fuck off. They were never anywhere near each other in this movie. It was Forrest Whitaker acting, Kiefer Sutherland voicing an animated character.
Well, it says on IMDb that the part of the sniper was originally shot with actor Ron Eldard, and then he was replaced with Kiefer Sutherland in reshoots.
Yeah, like, don't call this a collaboration between Sutherland and Forrest Whitaker, someone who's only in a third of the movie and a person who just did voiceovers after it was done.
Yeah, I mean, Forrest Whitaker is good in this.
He centers the movie immediately.
Yeah,
and then I love that it sets up a kind of conflict between him and the other officer who wants to be the one doing all the negotiations.
Yeah,
and then it just drops it.
Well, it's a weird thing because like they're trying to set up some backstory there between them, like that apparently some of Captain Raimi's techniques have gotten people killed in the past, and so this negotiator guy is like pissed at him, but they don't really like delve into what it is. We just know, but I kind of like that because it's not. Because of how short the movie is, and because
it's real time, you can't tell. You have to have everybody. You have to have someone very quickly tell somebody like, this person has lived before this.
Yeah, and it's like you get little bits and pieces of Captain Raimi's story of like, the job cost him his wife, and he's in therapy now, and like he should have been, more. He should have communicated better with his partner, and like. Maybe she would have stayed and that kind of thing. Like, I like that you get those little snippets of who this character is, but it's not because this movie is just like basically a slice of life. I mean, that sounds weird to say because not many people are held in a phone booth at gunpoint, but it's just about this one moment in their lives. And they exist outside of this.
I do love Forrest Whitaker in this movie, and he's great in so many things. But I haven't seen a lot of them because a lot of them happened in the 2000s. But if you really wanted to use audience familiarity with a character to give like an instant backstory to somebody / like invisible narrative, right? Where like someone like sometimes that's why you cast a character who is a character actor. So like someone like, oh, I see this person and I instantly know they're this sort of character, right? Then the screenwriter doesn't have to, or the director doesn't have to like do a lot of legwork to inform you of their type of person, right? So this movie takes place in New York. It is shot in LA.
Yeah.
Just make it take, and there's no reason for it to be, considering he's a publicist for stars, it could absolutely take place in LA. I don't know why it's in New York.
For sure. It
so,
could.
So have it take place in LA.
But it's Larry Cohen, and he likes New York, so
and he does. I know, and I feel for him. But just make this one little adjustment. Take out Forrest Whitaker. I apologize, Forrest. You're great, but sometimes you have to get rid of the forest so you can see the trees.
Wow. All right.
And
well, podcast's over. Goodbye, everybody.
So you put in as the police officer who just happens to be walking by. It's just another day for him, but he gets stuck into this position because he sees what's happening. He sees the sex pimp shot, and he's unfortunately stuck in a situation that's the only point of contact between the world and Stu, and that is Reginald Vell Johnson as Al Powell from Die Hard.
And then he gets to tell Stu all about how he accidentally shot a kid.
Yes, that's what you do. And Stu's not even paying attention to him because he can't talk to him because he has to have like this secondary conversation because the caller, by the way, that's Kiefer Sutherland's character called the caller. The caller won't let him talk to him, give any hints. So it's all Reginald Vell Johnson just giving all his backstory once again from the first Die Hard movie to Colin Farrell, who does not care.
That was a long walk, but it was successul.
It was a walk through the forest and got past the forest and we get to Reginald Vell Johnson. I just want Reginald Vell Johnson to get more work. That's all.
No, absolutely. I'm 100% on board with that. Well, so we do have to talk. I want to talk about just little bits and pieces because, again, the movie plays out pretty straightforwardly.
Let's talk. If you had to talk about something, we have to talk about the start because, like, this is a movie that's going to take place all inside of one phone booth. Basically, we'll talk about the editing tricks in a second, that goes against what every producer and director and whatever will ever want to do. Like, they're going to be told, like, hey, be very constrained. We're just going to do this. You don't get to block out a lot of scenes. You have to create the drama through acting and the tricks. So to balance that, why not make the credits start in outer space?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I was saying. It was kind of very like Matrixy, but also there's a little bit of Fight Club in there. Have you seen Fight Club?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. So there is the way that Fight Club opens. It is this like weird zoomed in version of like you're seeing all these like amoeba and cells and things, and then it sort of like zooms out and you see all these synapses firing, and then you realize you're inside someone's body and it kind of zooms out of their face. And this is sort of the opposite of that, where it goes from space to the earth and then into circuits, and it's like spinning around inside circuits, and there's all this like early 2000s club music playing, like the fucking Crystal Method or something.
Well, it starts off as doo-wop music, right? Well, we see all these circuit boards and stuff, and then in universe, the doo-wop, we come down the streets and the music we've been hearing throughout this is being sung by characters.
That's right. Like, there's like a quartet on the streets singing.
And then it turns into like kind of a dubstep version of it, pre-dubstep. I'm sure it's, it's the infancy of dubstep. And then all of a sudden there's just all this breakdancing. And I'm like, they're getting all their energy here. And they talk about New York City and they have all these stats. And they go 3 million cell phone users. And I'm like, oh, fuck you guys. That's all. And they're like, and they start talking about payphones and how many people still use payphones every day. And it's like, fucking, what?
I knew that you would enjoy this. When I found out that it was your first time watching it, I was like, oh, this will be fun because Skinner will get to see all of the early 2000s that just are soaking the opening of this movie.
Oh, it's just so this. If they had just taken it as fact that he's at a phone booth so he can do anonymous calls to his mistress or his wannabe mistress.
Yeah.
And never like gave all these weird stats and discussions about like the role of the phone booth and how many people have phones. And like, if they hadn't said anything, you would have taken like, okay, this is of the period. There's phone booths. But the second they're like giving all this shit and talk about the importance of the phone booth and blah, blah, blah phones. And there's only 3 million cell phones. And they go on like this whole discussion about like, when people hear the phone ringing, they have to pick up, and people make all these phones. It's like, guess what? At some point, guess what? We have more phones than ever. but we don't pick up the phone anymore because we found out that actually talking on the phone fucking sucks. We all decided at one time that talking on the phones is the last thing we want to do on the phone. And all they had to do was just not say any of these stats. And it would been like there's so many things of every era like that they discuss, like what's popular at the time. And if you just show it, it's fine. Like I almost can like, but it's not the net level bad, but like it's fucking, you just have to, if you go and just say it and like, here's how things are. It's like, that's how things are this exact minute. You have to understand you just age your thing immediately.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why they have that opening narration because it's not by anybody who's in the movie. It doesn't credit the narrator as far as I can tell on IMDb, but I'm fairly certain, and I could be wrong, but I am fairly certain that it's Kevin Michael Richardson, who is a prolific voiceover artist. He has been in everything. Like if you have listened to, like if you've watched a cartoon or a movie that has some sort of voiceover person in it, he's probably in it in some way. Like he's been in everything. He played he's been in tons of animated shows. He's been like in one of the remakes of Batman, he was the Joker in one of those. He was Goro's voice in the Mortal Kombat movie. Like he's been on basically every cartoon that you can think of. And I think that's his voice doing the narration, which it's weird that they just didn't have Kiefer Sutherland do that narration.
It's weird. You know what's also weird is Jared Leto is in this movie, but it's deleted. And know what else is great about this movie? He was in this movie and they deleted it.
Well, it's only deleted on the regular DVD release. When it plays on television, they put that scene back in so that the movie fits a 2-hour with commercials block on television.
Well, fuck that.
So never watch Phone Booth if you catch it on TV.
This movie, like the weakest part of this movie, besides Big Q, is when Colin Farrell is walking through the street and they're just setting up that he's a dickhead.
Yeah.
It goes on a little too long. And I know just through osmosis of podcasts that the 2000s loved our shitty male protagonist who sometimes learns her lesson, sometimes don't. I also have not watched American Psycho. I have watched that TikTok by Soupy Time, which does the one scene about
oh yes, of course,
Hip to Be Square, of course.
Yeah. I
had to look up what that was referencing.
I mean, it's a good movie. You know, it's
a good TikTok.
I'd say the movie's better than the book. But maybe we'll do that on the show as well. I'm just gonna make you watch all these movies that I feel like you probably should see at least once.
I like that, like, you have come to some grips with the fact that how much I have not seen, and yet it still shocks you every now and then.
Yeah, I don't think about it because I guess it's just me. Like, predictocast is weird for me because I have seen a lot of movies, and so finding things that I haven't seen or that I don't know anything about can sometimes be difficult, which is why we tend to lean towards the more obscure, weird shit, and also why we don't get a lot of downloads because no one knows what we're talking about. And for you, it's fine because you haven't seen a lot of stuff, so you are kind of open to watching whatever. And yeah, I mean, there are some things out there that I'm like, yeah, you might like those. I don't know. I mean, maybe you would hate them. I have no way of knowing.
And nor do I, because I won't watch them. Like, you know that feeling when you have an afternoon off and you're like, oh, I'll sit back and watch a movie. I never had that feeling.
Maybe we'll do an episode where I recount what the movies are about, and then you don't have to watch them. I can just tell you what happens in them.
We'll call it Joshipedia.
Very good. But yeah, you're right. They do spend a lot of time setting up how much of a jerk he is, and I think they could just if they wanted us to know how big of a jerk he was, they could just put the camera on his face and we could just stare at that awful chin beard he has, and we would just know immediately.
Okay, that's true. And this is tiny baby Colin Farrell. So like he just looks like a just out of teenagerhood person who's trying to play grown up.
Yeah, I mean, he's 26 in this movie, which is what you were mentioning earlier, that Katie Holmes looks so young. She's only 2 years younger than him, and Radha Mitchell is only 3 years older than Colin Farrell. So all of these relationships are age appropriate, which is crazy to me.
Which is crazy. You hardly ever see it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel that way, because when he calls up Katie Holmes and she answers the phone, she looks 12, and all I can think of is like, Hollywood must be so excited to have this female celebrity who is well known, who looks like a baby, but they can sell sexually. But here's another thing I love from the Wikipedia on this. Speaking of his character and knowing at a glance what his actual character is, they said that they originally had cast Jim Carrey.
Oh my God, I saw that. That would be terrible.
It would be absolutely terrible. It would have been absolutely awful. But he's talented for what he is. Great in Sonic the Hedgehog. I have seen that movie.
I like Jim Carrey's dramatic roles. I just don't think this is the right one for him.
He can't a drama where he's stuck in one spot for the entire time. Either it would be too constrained for him, or he would overblow it. It is literally, I don't think there's a middle ground for it. They said Joel Schumacher said, we were going to shoot it that summer, and he was fitted for the suit, which means before they came up with the character of Stu Shepard, they had already figured out that he was going to wear this purple suit.
Well, I mean, it's Joel Schumacher. Come on.
There's a point in the middle, like late in the movie, where Stu starts talking about his suit, and it really struck me like, this is a really fucking stupid suit. Like, even for early 2003, 2004, like 2002, this purple suit is ridiculous.
Yeah,
he might as well walk down the street wearing a zoot suit.
Oh man, if only.
It would cause a riot.
Jim Carrey could have been in it then. He'd just wear his outfit from The Mask.
You know what? He could have been in the phone booth, and like they're trying to he's trying to get everyone to go away, and they're like yelling at him, and you can't tell what's going on, and he's like, he just like pop his head out and go, "Somebody stop me!" They could have done a lot of the world building of the Stu world of what a dick he was through the phone calls he makes to Pam and Kelly.
Yeah.
And like, because we have Kiefer as the caller who knows all about his past, he could have informed us of the background rather than have Stu walk through the middle of traffic for like what seems like 15 minutes and just being a shithead to everybody.
Well, I mean, if we did that though, then we wouldn't get our cool Ben Foster cameo as Big Q.
I
who went on to start talking about Pizzagate and all this other stuff.
I love that Jamie Kennedy saw this one scene and it's like, Malibu. Instead of, if I just move this character to Malibu.
Yeah, Ben Foster is playing like a weird white rapper that I guess is like a Eminem sort of stand-in. But yeah, Malibu's Most Wanted came out a year later, so it's not a stretch to think that maybe he did decide, I'm going to do what Ben Foster did.
Otherwise, don't do what Ben Foster does. But yeah, like that was a scene. I thought when it started, that scene with Big Q where he's talking on the phone about trying to set up trying to delay his album dropping party. I was very worried that we would have more of Big Q.
Yeah, I was worried he was going to show up at the end like, "Hey man, what's going on?" while he's in the phone booth. I was also glad that Josh Page as Mario, Raphael
from the Ninja Turtles, when he showed up, I was like, holy shit, it's him. But
I pointed that out to my roommate while we were watching. When that guy comes out and he starts yelling about everything, and then he does this a couple of times. I think we only need it to happen once. but Stu sort of does reverse psychology on people to get them to do what he wanted them to do by telling them that he can't do what he wants to do. And he does that here with Mario, where he's like, oh, Big Q, I'd like to have him his record release party at your establishment, but I don't know, I don't know if we can do that. And the guy's like, wait a minute, no, I would like to do that. And so he kind of spins it so that the guy feels like it's his decision to get the record release party to happen there. But yeah, when the guy shows up and he starts talking, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Raphael. And my roommate was like, oh my God.
I don't know why it hit me so fucking hard. Like,
as soon as you hear his voice and you close your eyes, you're like, oh shit, yeah, that's Raphael.
Like, because I've watched so few movies in the last 25 years, apparently, like it has concentrated like a neutron star.
You just watched the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie over and over
and over again.
That'll be on the Patreon at some point, I think.
I think it should. I was thinking that or the second one. The second one's more fun to talk about, but I'd rather watch the first one.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it is shockingly to me a movie that it's not the movie you would have made to really get after those kids who were watching the cartoon. But this is a weird thing to me, because he actually pulls off with Mario this whole scheme to get this party happening, and like it seems for a moment at least that he's like good at his job. And then later when he's talking to the caller, he has to admit that he has no contacts. He's a complete fraud.
But he's obviously getting shit done, because during the whole opening scene, he gets the party set up at that restaurant. He gets an item about this actress that he's trying to publicize and promote, put in page 6 gossip column, which means that people are going to know her name. He gets these 2 magazines fighting over the cover or a feature for one of his other clients. So like, he's obviously doing something that's working.
He obviously is, and he has clients like who actually have careers. Like they're not shown as being like nothings who he's tricked into thinking they have careers. They have roles. I mean, we have what's her face, who's not Kelly. What's the other one? Pam?
Yes.
Pam. Those names. My God.
Kelly and Pam on The Office. That's what this is.
It's incredible. But like Pam like makes a good Jerry Maguire reference to her publicist. Like, holy shit, that time frame.
That she would have been married to Tom Cruise a couple of years later is crazy.
Absolutely crazy. And then her career went on a hiatus for no reason whatsoever. But like, she clearly he's doing something. He has an assistant, like, and then like he does his whole speech. I'm a fraud. I don't do anything. I don't have contacts. The caller's like, you can't get people on these news channels like you tell them to do. You can't do this. You can't do that. You've never done this. I'm like, we've seen him kind of do it. And okay, his watch doesn't cost $2,000. Like, no watch ever should.
There would be people that would disagree with you, I'm sure.
I'm sure, but like, he's got that. Like, I don't know. It's so weird. Other weird things. I don't want to. You've told the whole plot in that list of things. I want to talk about little things.
I think this is a detail episode. Like, this is little bits and pieces, because like it's a short enough movie that it's interesting to see how the tension ratchets up, and how like pretty much from the moment he picks up that phone, when he gets that call from the caller right up front, like, it's pretty sustained tension all the way through. There's never like a moment of breath. And when all those people are trying to get into the phone booth early on, I was getting a little stressed out.
It was, because it really does because what that scene does is that it really shows that like it is a very vulnerable position. It's very public position. Like, he's not stuck in some hotel room. He's not stuck in the attic of his house. He's not stuck in some office space. He's stuck in public in the daytime in a bad part of town. And like, he's very open, and he has very little defense about what's going on around him, and everyone can see him. And that's what makes it interesting. And then everyone else has to figure out what the fuck's going on with him. and most of the characters are thankfully figure out that there's more to it very quickly, because a lot of movies would, if they were padded 20 minutes, they'd have more time of them like yelling at him like he actually did shoot the pimp and everything, that he's the killer. They have Forrest figured out fairly quickly when he gets a really good hint on it.
Yeah, I will say that like there was talks of a bunch of different people potentially directing this, one of whom was Michael Bay, and his big thing when he met with Larry Cohen and the producers was, how do we get him out of the phone booth really quickly? So like he completely missed the point of what the movie was, and that would have been an example of where the movie would have been like an hour 45 or 2 hours when it didn't need to be.
And the girls would not have been mostly constrained to picture in picture, which I wanted to ask if the picture in picture gimmick worked for you.
It's interesting. It's an interesting way to keep us in the mindset of all of this stuff is happening at once by not cutting away traditionally as you would do. It sort of keeps you in the mindset of, oh, he's still in this phone booth, but also this other stuff is happening in the world around him. These cops are showing up. They're running around doing stuff. His wannabe mistress is doing stuff. His wife is doing stuff. And we're seeing all these things happening simultaneously, which I think kind of keeps the tightness, because anytime you would cut away from him to see them, you're losing that tension. So I think it's a way to maintain the tension while also keeping us informed of what's going on around him. And it's kind of almost like little thought bubbles in a way.
It is, and they're edited in interestingly. Like they're all kind of different shapes and different spots in the screen. It's sometimes it's a little irritating. They do make sure to do it consistently, even for the phone calls he's having at the start of the movie.
Yeah.
With other characters that, in the end aren't that important, but it does do a contrast that we don't see Kiefer Sutherland's phone call character. So it makes him more mysterious because he's the only person on the other side of the phone call that we don't see.
So that's a good point. What I was going to say is the only thing that I kind of wish they hadn't done was that I never wanted to see from the POV of the caller. I think they do it a couple times where you see through the scope of the gun.
It looks dumb every time.
And I don't think it's necessary. I think it's worse when we don't have an idea of roughly where he is, because I think that it's the only thing that kind of takes you out of it in like a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, I know at least he's in roughly this area. And I think that that's kind of a misstep. I think it would be a little bit more effective if you never saw anything from his POV the entire time and you were always unsure of exactly where he was. Like you could kind of, okay, he's probably in the building across the street, but I have no idea where. I have no idea how he's seeing everything. And I think it would be better if you didn't have any idea of anything at all.
Yes, I think it would have been better if we only ever saw the gun stuff when it was the red dots.
Yes.
It would increase the tension on that if we had never saw the stupid scope cartoon.
Well, speaking of cartoons, when they do that weird overlay on a lot of the footage, when the people walking around and they just look like cartoons, and I'm like,
yes.
We don't need this. And we also don't need the camera zooming around and like
when he
going wonky all over the buildings and stuff. I'm like, we don't need that.
When he for a movie that's basically shot in real time, like not shot in, but like the movie takes place in real time,
yeah,
more or less. When he goes outside and he's supposed to feel like uncomfortable and unsure, and then everything around him is moving at double speed except for himself, it feels weird because the rest of the movie is going at exactly the pace that it would have gone.
Yeah,
and I feel like the little toy robot that walks up to him that gets shot is there to be shot at as a warning that there's a gun pointed at him. Yeah. Is trying to say something about we're all robots walking around. And I was like, this movie doesn't need any symbolism.
I'm sure there is definitely some social commentary in here for sure. I mean, obviously it's about a guy who lies to promote people, and it's about, this guy who lies to promote himself and maybe
like
city,
Larry Cohen,
all that.
Larry Cohen should have put Chris Neville from special effects in a phone booth and had this guy.
Speaking of Larry Cohen movies that we've talked about this month, I wondered if there was a weird, subtle connection to Deadly Illusion when we cut to Katie Holmes's restaurant, and next to her is just these two giant vials of green liquid.
There's a point where like where Stu is walking around and like it's kind of like, you know, like he knows everyone in this part of the town or something, right? Because he's always going here to this hamburger. And I was thinking like, I want him to walk by hamburger.
Oh my God, that would be amazing if Billy D. Williams just gave him like a little finger gun.
That would have been so amazing. But, you know, it's a Schumacher film, not a Cohen film, technically.
That is true. Very, very true.
What I want to ask you another thing was when his wife, Kelly, not Pam, Kelly's a different character, shows up at the scene. And I do like that because it's kind of real time. They're accused by putting him on TV everywhere that this is all going on. It gives, like, Pam would not show up till later. So she shows up later. She has to leave where she was at to get there.
Yeah.
Kelly kind of gets a heads up on one of her scenes when the caller calls her first.
Yeah.
But she gets there and he does his whole speech to kind of get her to leave because he doesn't want her in danger, saying she's a stalker. I don't know her. And then she's got to prove to the police that she is his husband, and like shows pictures.
Uh-huh.
Her reaction is so muted to this. Like if my spouse, who has been on the show, was in this situation and I showed up and she started saying that, I wouldn't go, that's so weird. I don't know what he's talking about. It is so weird that she's saying that. I'm so confused. Why would he say that? Why would she say that? That's kind of weird. And like, she's not like, the fuck are you talking about? Like,
she's like,
I'm her, like,
yeah, what is wrong with you?
And like, what are you talking about? Like being incredulous, like, or like go to the police and like, there's something fucking seriously wrong. Cause like, that's the dumbest
like,
thing.
It could be, it should be okay, I don't know what's going on, but something is seriously wrong here.
The way she plays it is like, there's a moment in her head where she's wondering, am I married to him? And I'm like, what is going? Like, I get that they have a strained relationship because he's actively trying to have an affair, but to have her be like, huh, that's weird. I'm pretty sure I'm married to him. And like the police are kind of doubtful of her because of this, and I'm like, I would be too, because she's having the exact wrong reaction to this, and she never leaves, and she gets a red dot thing on her head. And then the caller gives this whole speech of like, she's dressed real nice, must be for the cameras, not because she never dressed nice for you. I'm like,
oh yeah, I said that was
nowhere.
That was some real incel shit there. Like, well, she's dressed up because she must want people to look at her. You're like, okay.
And that's the thing. Like, if you made this movie today, the caller, no matter how bad Stu is, the caller would come off as an incel.
Yeah, I wonder, like, because he is
like, he's like, oh, this fucking Chad.
Yeah, he is sort of supposed to be like this weirdly like moralistic bad guy or vigilante. Like, he's out there stopping the quote bad people.
But like I think besides people who love the Joker, like we fucking have gotten to the point where like we realize that the vigilantes are like assholes.
Yeah. I think
in the traditional like movie / comic sense.
Yeah, I think because like this is around this is a little bit pre that, but this was around the era of the anti-hero kind of coming to prominence. Like I said, it's a little bit before it, but there were television shows on the air. I mean, even Kiefer Sutherland himself is in 24. Like, he's ostensibly a good guy, but he goes above and beyond and does some pretty questionable things to get to the truth. Like, he's not above shooting people or killing people in order to
two people
to get
he killed two people to make a douchebag admit he was thinking about having an affair.
Yeah, like, so it's like
I know, like, where Stu was not supposed to be. He's still the star of the movie. Otherwise, he wouldn't have a happy ending. Where Kelly was like, "I'll listen to whatever you say," which is what. But like the caller isn't framed as like what you have to do is like to have him start as this voice of morals, right? Who wants to scare this guy straight or like make this guy realize he's scum, and then like make him piss his pants in public on TV or whatever, humiliate him for being scum. But he kills other people.
Yeah, he kills the doorman at the strip club across the way because the guy's trying to break into the phone booth, and he asks Stu if he wants his help, and Stu says yes, but he misinterprets that. He thinks that the guy's asking if he can hear him, and Stu says yes to that, not to kill the guy, but the caller kills the guy anyway because he clearly wants to, and so like this guy gets murdered. And I mean, yeah, he was the bouncer or the doorman at a strip club, but that doesn't. We don't know that he's a bad guy.
Like it's being a bouncer at a strip club is not a
murderable offense.
Like otherwise, like every strip club person would end up on death's row. And yes, we do criminalize sex workers far too much. And this movie actually treats them like shit. Besides killing this guy, like the sex workers and strippers who are in this area are treated like they're garbage, and it's just mean how they treat them. Like they're hysterical, they're liars, they're over the top, people.
Yes, although there is an amazing moment where one of the sex workers who is trying to get in the phone booth to return a call, and she can't. She is hitting the glass of the door, and she hits it really hard and goes, "Oh, you made me hurt my dick hand."
That's a good line. Everyone needs one.
And I think what from what I understand from IMDb, apparently a lot of that stuff was improvised, which is great improvisation.
Yes, like a lot of this movie, like you couldn't improvise a lot of what Stu does, because
I think that's all scripted, but I think all of the extras and like the ancillary characters, I think they're all just told to react as they would normally.
And which is good because his stuff has to be so specific, because I'm going to guess like they hadn't recorded or maybe even cast Kiefer Sutherland when they shot all of it.
No.
So it has to be very specific. He has to be reacting to very specific lines.
Yeah.
And Kiefer's going to have to come in and read very specific lines because they're doing it out of order. Much like a cartoon, you can only do so much. So like to bring some more fun energy and kind of like not stock responses, that is a good idea to have everybody else kind of do that. I do like that they reference UPN, also freezing this in fucking time. Someone like a most gory police shootout video, also very of the time.
Well, and also a very right now, because I was going to bring that up too.
He's right to not trust the NYPD not to shoot him.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Like it is very like contemporary to right now what they're talking about, because they bring up the issue of the guy who was killed for pulling his wallet out. Like he was shot 41 times.
Seems like pretty. I mean, 38 shots. You're never sure.
But yeah, it's Amadou Diallo. He was approached by police. He pulled out his wallet to presumably show them his ID. They mistakenly thought it was a gun, and 4 of the officers shot 41 rounds at him, and he was shot 19 times and died. And like they bring that up because it's very he is like totally right, but I found it very funny that the caller is like, "Oh, you see all these people with cameras and stuff? The cops won't do anything when the cameras are rolling." And I'm like, "Okay, it's 2020 and they have no qualms about beating the shit out of people while the cameras are rolling."
You cannot trust them. They do shoot him with rubber bullets in this, which we've seen enough of that.
Even they shot him in the face and his fucking eye fell out.
Yeah, like, hey, if you're on the path of somebody wanting to do a photo op, you have been aggressive enough that you should be shot. If you're this whole world. The I got most frustrated with, and because it's something movies do all the time, and especially in this world where people, the idea like I thought they were going for a gun means I can shoot you.
Yeah.
So like there's a point where like they all think the people who, so after the front door bouncer is shot and slowly killed by a sniper rifle, they all think that, they all tell the police that in his back pocket where his cell phone is, because he's a double phone boy, is his gun. And he's trying to tell them, I don't have no weapons on me. All I have in my pocket is my cell phone. And they're like, sure. And he's like, well, let me show you. And anytime he reaches for his things, they're about to shoot him. They're like, put your hands up, put your hands down. I'm like, there's 75 of you and one of him.
And he's in a phone booth.
And you can't prove that you don't have a gun, because if you try to, because they're going to shoot you because you have a gun. But if you try to prove that you don't have a gun, that means to them, they have enough excuse to say you were going for a gun that we think you have, that we can shoot you.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole moment of like, you can't win. And hey, in 2003, we knew it then. It's not new. It has never been new.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Don't pretend it's
like that they brought that up, and it was like, oh shit, man, it's still fucking happening 18 years after this movie came out, and probably happening 18 to 180 years before this movie came out.
So I want to talk about the pizza guy before we go.
Okay, yeah, the pizza guy who is set up at the very beginning.
What is this setup about?
So here's what I think. Okay, so at the very beginning, as he goes into the phone booth, he goes to this phone booth every day. He calls Katie Holmes's character Pam, right? Pam.
Sure.
And he calls her there because apparently his wife Kelly checks his cell phone, which that sets up a dynamic about their relationship that clearly she doesn't trust him if she's checking his cell phone for any potential calls that he might be making.
I think cell phones and the idea that your spouse or partner could check your calls was so new there that people were just fascinated with the idea that you could just go up to somebody's personal inbox of their life. Was very exciting an idea for screenwriters. I think what is really interesting about this movie, as far as Pam and Kelly's interaction with him, is that neither seemed that shocked or upset at his confession.
Yeah, they both are like, yeah, that sounds about right.
like most movies would have, when he does the big like I'm a piece of shit speech, and both Pam and Kelly are there, and we have the sniper saying like I'm gonna shoot one or the other, pick, would have Pam go like, oh, I've been embarrassed in front of everybody in this crowd, I'm just gonna get up and walk away. She doesn't. She just has a face like, yeah, I kind of knew you were like this, like. And then he
has them meet at the end.
Yeah. Yes. Like and neither seemed like, I know that the situation probably is emotionally overwhelming their other reactions, even though they're both fairly calm throughout the whole thing, considering. But like neither has a reaction of like, that piece of shit. They're both like, well, look at him.
Yeah.
He looks like that.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
Yeah. So, okay. So Pizza Guy,
let's talk about Pizzagate here.
Yeah. We got Q and Pizzagate. So he's trying to leave the phone booth, and a guy shows up with a pizza that says he was told to deliver it here. Now, I've spent only a small amount of time in New York, but I do find it kind of far-fetched that there would be a moment where someone would say, hey, deliver this pizza to this phone booth, and the guy's going to go, fuck no, I'm not doing that. What,
to me, was interesting about it, as far as like not understanding what was going on with it. So like, they have it. So he shows up with the pizza, and of course, Stu is like, no one delivers pizzas to a phone booth. That makes no fucking sense. He's like, no, I got it here. It says to the man in this thing, and it's paid for. He's like, well, I don't want a pizza. I don't know what you're talking about. Go give it to a homeless person. He's like, no, I can't give the homeless people. They think I'm trying to poison them if I do. And he won't leave.
That sounds like a Larry Cohen movie right there. The poisons are like homeless people are being poisoned all over the city, and they're trying to figure out what's going on.
And it's a pizza guy.
Yeah.
That's the real Pizzagate. And like he tells him basically to fuck off. But the guy's very upset because he's like, what am I supposed to do with this pizza? Here's what a New Yorker would do with that pizza.
Eat
it or toss it in the garbage. It's paid for. It literally at that point, once the guy said no, he would move on with his life because it is of no, like he is, unless he's going for a tip, he has no stake in it whatsoever.
Yeah,
Zero.
The guy wouldn't give a shit. Like if it's his restaurant, maybe he'd be like, "Hey, I made this myself. Please take it."
And then later, when the caller is talking to him, he's almost like, "You didn't take that pizza, and you told him to fuck off." I'm like, that wasn't a moral quandary. Like it wasn't because he's a scuzzbag that he did that.
It's there, like, so he says, "What was the pizza for?" when he's talking to him on the phone, and he says it was to get your strength up for what's about to happen. So I guess he was going to eat this entire pizza while he's sitting there, which makes sense, I guess. But he's only in the phone booth if the movie's in real time about an hour, so he's probably okay. Like he's probably not dying of hunger.
I like to think that like, he knows everything about Stewart, and he knows he's like lactose intolerant.
He was just hoping he'd shit his pants.
Like on national TV?
Yeah, maybe so.
Like his whole plan is... The problem with his plan was his entire plan was for Stewart to shit his pants on national TV because he has lactose intolerance. And because he never ate that pizza, the whole plan was thrown awry. So he's making up the rest as he goes. And that's why he's so mad he has to kill the pizza guy at the end. Because he's like, my whole plan required him to eat this pizza and you weren't insistent enough. So I have to kill you.
So, okay. So that's another thing. So he sends the pizza guy away. And they try to do some cleverness here where he tells the guy to fuck off, and the pizza guy says, "Well, there's no need for that kind of language," or something like that. And the caller uses that exact same phrase later. So you're supposed to, I think, try to tie it together, like, oh, could it be the pizza guy? Even though we've heard them both talk and they sound different.
And Kiefer Sutherland's voice is so crystal clear.
Yeah, I should have listened more closely. I didn't think to do this, but I wonder if they dubbed the pizza guy's voice so that he sounded like Kiefer Sutherland. That would have been interesting, but I don't think they did that.
I don't think they did either. And then, like, so to get him to come back to... When the police show up at where the sniper's nest is, they find the gun, and they find... the guy dead with his neck sliced with
a carpenter knife is what they say.
And it turns out it's the pizza guy.
Yeah.
So
also this is insane. They go upstairs, they find the guy's body. He's still alive, but he's losing a lot of blood. They bring him. So they've shot Stu with a rubber bullet. He gets out of the phone booth at some point. He jumps out and he's like, take me, I'm the guy. And they shoot him with a rubber bullet. And he's recovering with his wife, and they just bring this dead body out into the street next to him and go, do you know who this is?
I like that he was bleeding out up top. And by the time they get down, like they're like, oh, we don't need any more dead people today. But he's dead by the time they get down. But like, so at some point, the caller needed a patsy, so he decided it would be exactly the same guy because he knew that he thought it would be a fun plot twist for the people watching this movie. He's like, he called and ordered another pizza and said, make sure it's the same guy who tried to deliver it to the phone booth, please.
Well, maybe there was a backup thing, like backup instructions, like if the pizza can't be delivered to the phone booth or the delivery is refused, here is the backup delivery location, and it was across the street.
Maybe like he would have been a little bit less insistent that the guy in the phone booth takes the pizza then.
That is also true. Like, I don't know, maybe the caller just like found him as he was Well, he couldn't though, because he was super, like, he called him right after the guy left. So
So like in theory,
how much time did it take for him to get the guy up there, and when did he kill him?
Well, that's the thing, because he acts like I had to kill him because, which is sad, because you blah blah blah, whatever you did, stewed out, whatever, right? So he knew the police was coming, so he needed to. So in theory, the pizza guy must have went to his place immediately afterwards, and then he must have been incapacitated by Kiefer Sutherland immediately. Otherwise, he wouldn't hang around the entire time unless they're having a pizza party together. And
hey, I gotta put a gun on this guy. Here, just have this pizza.
You sit back there and you eat the pizza while I talk on the phone and shoot this strip club guy with this sniper rifle. He must have came to his place and he must have immediately incapacitated him, and he must have been incapacitated behind him, like either knocked out or gagged the entire movie. And then when the call is traced, he then must have immediately cut his neck and then left.
Yeah, I guess.
But like it's a fake out that in a movie that, like I said, if you think about it very surfacely, it's so uncomplex that you're like, no, I could see this happening. It couldn't. But you could think, like, within the world of a movie, it could happen, right?
Yeah.
More than most things. But this twist is, if you think about the logistics of it, makes fucking zero sense. The pizza part is just there, like, to throw you off, like, that's a weird thing that happened. Weird things are happening to him right away as soon as he gets in this phone booth. Pizza to the phone booth, that makes no sense. But they don't know that it's there, so that when they find the dead body, it's the pizza guy. But it's not actually the pizza guy. We know, because it sounds like Kiefer Sutherland. We know who that voice is.
Yeah.
You should have either actually had the pizza guy be the voice, or had like a competent voice actor who is not famous be the voice. But
originally they were going to get the guy who did the phone voice in Scream, which would have not worked, because then it would have just been like, I'm thinking of the Scream movies.
Get the movie phone guy.
Hello, Stu. I'm going to kill you.
The German porn king. But yeah,
press
like
2 to survive.
It like the pizza guy thing only bothered me because it's the one thing in the movie that really just like, no, that doesn't work. And like, it doesn't have to be there.
It's just to set up the twist at the very end, which is that he is put into an ambulance. He's given a sedative.
Why is he given a sedative?
I think just to calm him down. I mean, he got shot in the chest with a rubber bullet, which, as we know from things that are going on currently, can really hurt. So maybe they're just trying to let him calm down a little bit and not feel the pain. And this guy comes up to the ambulance and talks to him for a little bit, and then we see that it's Kiefer Sutherland. He says, sorry about the pizza guy, but you kind of messed up my plan a little bit, and be sure to be good, and I hope that this is really changing you, because if it doesn't, I will be coming back for you. And then he walks through this crime scene with his instrument case, stopping to look at the phone booth, and then mentions how a ringing phone must always be answered.
So in theory, he's going to do it again.
Yes,
and soon.
Yes,
but like, they all know, like, the second that this happens again, the police will be like, oh, like that fucking last time. Immediately just like go look for snipers.
Yeah, like they'll have an idea of what's going on, but also it's like, it's wild that he just wanders through a crime scene with his instrument case that's probably carrying a high-powered rifle.
It's so unnecessary for it to happen. It's like, and hey, I know through the language of movies that Kiefer Sutherland with glasses on is dangerous. Like, that is always true. If his character's wearing glasses, he's barely contained aggression. I understand. The glasses are trying to hold him back, but underneath he's a madman. He's
looking for a Christmas tree to go jump into.
Yes, but he fucking, God damn it. Like, if you don't keep on the honest path, like, what are you? Are you Jesus? Are you a Care Bear? Are you come down from a Care-a-Lot? Like, are you like I'm gonna be watching you piss the rest of your life? Like, like I'm gonna watch you if you fap off. Like, what I'm gonna be. You better. Hey, Stu. You better do everything in the incognito tab because I gotta.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like if you even think about having sex with someone who's not your wife, I will shoot you to death.
If you, because like he talks about like he is like his sin isn't that he had an affair with Pam, because he didn't. It's that he wanted to. He took off his ring while he talked on the phone, and that's what grabbed the attention of him. This man who watches.
Yes.
Who watches people at the phone booths.
We have to start wrapping it up though, because we have to be less than the runtime of the movie. We are fast approaching the 81-minute mark, and we have to start wrapping it up. I refuse to let this episode go longer than the movie itself.
Just remember, if you see a podcast enter your feed, you have to pick up.
You have to listen to it.
Please subscribe, like, and download every Hot Diggity Dog episode, the newest, hottest podcast about dog movies on the internet. You're on our Patreon. You probably already are doing that, so thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is a good way to close out the month. I like this movie for the most part. I think it definitely has all the early 2000s hallmarks, but I think for what it is, it works pretty well. It's pretty effective. It's fun.
Yeah, it's good. This would not have worked well as a traditional predictocast episode.
No,
but I think it's a fun watch. It's very, very more than decent.
That's a good...
the strip club bouncer hockey beats up Colin. So that's fun. He gives him a headlock and starts punching him in the
head. One little final piece of trivia before we wrap it up. At one point, because he'd been trying to get this made for so long, he wanted Larry Cohen pitched the idea to Tony Curtis to be in the movie, and I'm sure he did it earlier in the like various decades. But because Tony Curtis died in 2010, and I still like to think that he was still trying to get him to play this character when he was 78 years old.
I would love that. It would have been so idiosyncratic.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I would want Charles Grodin to be the main character, the main phone guy in this movie. And it turns out the person calling him is Beethoven.
All right. Well, I think that is the perfect place to wrap up this month's bonus episode. We are coming in under the runtime of the movie. We did it. But until next month, when we are back with another bonus episode for you, our loyal Patreon supporters, I've been Josh.
I've been Skinner.
And we predict you'll join us. Gotta go answer this phone. It's been ringing constantly.
I mean, if it never not answer. Everything goes straight to voicemail for me now. I'm the worst person on the planet, but also the strongest.
Watch out for red sniper dots.